Hi guys, it's Mr. Call. Let's go ahead and get going on some homework help for homework 2.7, solving equations with the distributive property. So let's go ahead and try this out. The first one we want to look at is problem number 4. Ooh, we kind of did some cool stuff here. So just kind of point out what we got. I have 2 times the quantity, x plus 7, and then we add x to that, and that's equal to 20. So our first step with this is we're going to take a look at distributing that 2 through the parentheses. So our real goal here is to do this kind of as straightforward as we can. I have a lot of my students who like to call this doing the rainbow. So I guess it kind of looks like a rainbow when you say 2 times the x and 2 times the 7. Oops, it's kind of there right there. So let's go ahead, let's do that. So we distribute that 2 through, we multiply it through to every term inside the parentheses there. So I get 2 times x, which is 2x, 2 times the 7, which is 14. It's a positive 14, so we're going to write a plus in between. Now everything else we just kind of rewrite. So plus x equals 20. Notice I do have my box over here. Yay, the box. So now the first thing we have to do is make sure we combine like terms. Now, before we've combined like terms when they're on different sides of the equal sign. Now you'll notice equal sign is here, but my x is here, and I have an x here. They're on the same side. So now what? Oh, Mr. Call, you told me that I had to do the opposite or something to move it over to the other side to combine like terms before, and this isn't the case this time. So to make sure we can see this difference where the variables are on just one side. They're all on this left-hand side of my equation. So what we do, we add them like normal. Okay, first thing though, please make sure you see this. This is a 1x, right? If I write an x by itself, that's 1x there by itself. So that makes sense to call it an x, right? So 2 x's plus 1 more x gives me 3 x's. Seem reasonable? So that gives me 3x. Now that positive 14 comes down, and that's equal to now 20. So again, when I start getting these multi-step equations, like we have to do more things to be able to solve these, we have to wait until almost the very end before we start dealing with the box. But now we can do the box here. So let's go ahead and write x up here. We're going to say, hey, that's first thing happening to x is it's being multiplied by 3, and it's being added to then by 14. We're going to go bottoms up and do the opposite as we solve this. So I'm going to minus 14 from both sides, and then I'm going to divide by 3. So we have our steps all written out for us. So let's do it. Let's solve it. The first thing the box says, minus 14 to both sides. So we do that. And remember, I like to go from left to right as we solve this. The 3x just comes down. 14, positive 14 minus 14, that adds to 0. So we don't really need to rewrite that. And that's equal to then 20 minus 14, which gives me 6. So now, last step it says then is to divide by 3 to both sides. Divide by 3, divide by 3. And let's simplify it out. Again, left to right as we solve it. 3x divided by 3 simplifies to just an x. And 6 divided by 3 is 2. So we see that my answer then has to be x equals 2. So not too bad. The only new part to this is that is initially we did the distributive property here, right? Multiplied that through. But then we also had to do this part where we combined like terms. Took a little bit longer to solve that out, but it worked. Let's take a look at the next one. This is number 10. This time I'm distributing a negative 3 through, which a lot of us like to struggle with. So I really see 2 problems here when students try to solve these. Normally the students are very good to do the negative 3 times that 2, but they forget to multiply the negative 3 times that negative 1 on that far side. Apparently that's just something that they kind of forget to do. Just watch out for that as you're solving these. If you get, in this class really, like we try to give you hints. The best way we give you a hint is that these should have whole number answers. So if you didn't get a whole number answer, go back and look. First place to look is, hey, did I distribute that 3, that negative 3, over to that negative 1 there when I multiplied it, or did I forget it and leave it as a negative 1? That's probably our first big clue there. Second thing to look at is we probably made a mistake on the signs here. Specifically multiplying by negative, we struggle with that. So let's go ahead, let's do our distributive property. Negative 3 times the 2x and a negative 3 times the negative 1. So let's do that. So negative 3 times 2x is negative 6x. Then negative 3 times a negative 1 is a positive 3. 2 negatives make a positive, right? That seems to be probably the biggest hurdle mentally we had to get over here, is the negative 3 times the negative 1 is a positive 3. Okay, and then everything else we just write out. Equals negative 63. Now we can use our box to solve it. Let's do it. Just have to write what's happening to x. First thing happening to x is it's being multiplied by a negative 6. The next thing that's happening to it is it's being added to by 3. Now with our box here, we're going to go bottoms up and do the opposite. We're going to minus 3 from both sides, and then we're going to divide by a negative 6. The best part about this box is we know exactly when we need to stop. We know exactly what we need to do now. We just have to do it. So let's get to it. Draw your line down the equal sign to kind of keep things straight, because we're doing operations to both sides of our equal sign. First step is to minus 3 from both sides. Minus 3, and we get, let's do it, starting from left to right again. So I bring down my negative 6x. Nothing changed there, right? Positive 3 minus 3, that cancels. It adds to 0. And then that's equal to negative 63 minus 3 gives me negative 66. So we now have negative 6x equals negative 66. We took care of that, subtracting 3 from both sides. Next step, divide by negative 6. So divide by negative 6, divide by negative 6, and I get, let's see, so a negative 6x divided by 6, again, going from left to right, solving this, we see that we'll get a 1, positive 1x. Now I'll write that as just an x there, and that's equal to a negative 66 divided by a negative 6. That's positive 11. 2 negatives make a positive. And so we have x equals 11. Again, places to check for mistakes. Woo! Smartboard, you're going crazy on me. Okay, those places to check for mistakes are initially with this distributive property here. We often will see the students forget to distribute to the negative 1, and then with that negative 3, we really tend to make mistakes with positives and negatives, so just watch out for those. Let's take a look at our last problem here. It says, circle the mistake, then correct it. So, okay, let's do that. Let's just write it out and work it out and see what we get. So I have 3 parenthesis 2x minus 6 close parenthesis is equal to 24. We're solving that one. First step is we need to distribute the 3 through before we start using our box. So let's do it. Distribute the 3 through. Now remember, we're going to both of them. So make sure we do that to both. So first one, 3 times the 2x is a 6x. Then 3 times the negative 6 is a negative 18. And that equals 24. Let's check where we're at here. That looks pretty good. Same thing, right? Let me use my box up here. Oh, I'm kind of out of space there for my x. So we're solving for x now. First thing happening to x is here. It's being multiplied by 6. Oh, and I put that 6 in parentheses for good luck. Then it's being subtracted by 18. Okay, so we're going to do the opposite. Bottoms up, do the opposite. We're going to start off by adding by 18, and then we're going to divide by 6. So let's do that. Add 18 to both sides. So we get, again, starting from left to right, I get a 6x there. Just comes down. Negative 18 plus 18 goes to 0. and it equals 42. Okay, let's check. Let's see what our compare it here. Yeah, still looks good. So no mistake yet, but it says there is a mistake, so we're guessing it's still here. So let's do it. So then divide by 6 is what my next thing says in my box, right? So let's divide by 6, and let's solve it. 6x divided by 6 becomes a 1x. It divides to 1. Okay, and that is equal to 42 divided by 6, which is 7. Okay, so that means my mistake then is here. Basically the answer. 42 divided by 6 is 7. It's not 8. So yeah, basically it was all right until that very last step, and they miscalculated. Okay, so that's it for homework help for this one. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you the next time.